You've felt this before. You're around people, everything looks normal, everyone's talking, laughing, moving through their day, but something inside you feels different. Not better, not worse, just different. And slowly, without even deciding to, you start pulling back. Not because you're angry, not because you hate anyone, you just don't feel like you belong in the same conversations anymore. You don't fit in the same rooms. This happens to a lot of people as they get older, especially people who've been through something difficult, something that changed them. Maybe it was loss, maybe it was pain, maybe it was just time and experience showing you things you couldn't unsee. And now, when you look around, the world feels louder than it used to. The things people worry about feel smaller to you. The things people chase don't make sense anymore. And the things people ignore, you can't stop thinking about them. So you start to pull away, not all at once, just a little at a time. You stop going to certain places. You stop answering certain calls. You stop trying to explain yourself, because when you do, people look at you like you've changed. And maybe you have. But here's the thing most people don't understand. You didn't leave because you think you're better than anyone. You left because staying felt like pretending, and you're too tired to pretend anymore. A lot of people call this being spiritual awake, but really, it's just being honest. It's seeing life a little more clearly and realizing that not everyone sees it the same way, and that's okay. But it does make you feel alone sometimes, and it does make you wonder if something's wrong with you. There's not. If you're enjoying this message, subscribe, leave a like, and share this with someone who needs it. Now, let's continue. And the real reason this happens is not what most people think. When you start to see life differently, the first thing that changes is what you care about. Things that used to excite you don't anymore. Things that used to bother you seem silly now. And things you never thought about before suddenly feel important. You stop caring about impressing people. You stop worrying about what others think of your choices. You stop chasing things that don't actually make you feel good. And this confuses people around you. Because to them, you look like you're giving up, like you're losing motivation, like you're not trying anymore. But you're not giving up. You're just done wasting energy on things that don't matter to you. You're done pretending to care about things you don't care about. You're done forcing yourself to fit into places where you have to shrink yourself to belong. And once you stop doing that, you realize how much of your life was spent performing, how much of your time was spent trying to be the person others expected you to be. And now that you've stopped, you can't go back. It's not that you hate the people you used to spend time with. It's not that you think they're bad or wrong. It's just that you're not the same person anymore, and they can feel it. They can feel that you're not laughing at the same jokes. You're not excited about the same things. You're not reacting the way you used to. And because they can't see what changed inside you, they assume you've become cold, distant, or difficult. But you haven't. You've just become more yourself. And being more yourself means letting go of things that never really fit, even if those things looked good from the outside, even if other people thought they were important. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever felt like you're moving through life at a different speed than everyone else? That's not a bad thing, but it does mean you're going to feel different, and it does mean some people won't understand. And this is where most people get hurt. When you start pulling away, people notice. And when people notice, they react. Some of them get worried. They ask if you're okay. They ask if something happened. They ask if they did something wrong. And you tell them no. You tell them you're fine. You tell them it's not about them. But they don't believe you. Because to them, it doesn't make sense. You used to be one way, and now you're another. You used to say yes, and now you say no. You used to show up, and now you don't. And they take it personally. They start to think you've changed for the worse. They start to think you're pushing them away on purpose. They start to think you're judging them. But you're not. You're just protecting your energy. You're just choosing peace over noise. You're just being honest about what you can and can't handle anymore. And that honesty, it makes people uncomfortable. Because when you stop pretending, you hold up a mirror. And other people start to see their own lives reflected back. And sometimes they don't like what they see. So instead of looking inward, they blame you. They say you've become negative. They say you've changed. They say you're not fun anymore. And maybe you have changed, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're no longer willing to live a life that doesn't feel true to you. And the hardest part? You can't explain this to most people. Because if they haven't felt it themselves, they won't understand. They'll think you're being dramatic. They'll think you're overthinking. They'll think you're making excuses. So eventually, you stop trying to explain. You stop defending yourself. You stop justifying your choices. You stop trying to convince people that you're still the same person deep down. Because maybe you're not. And maybe that's okay. Have you felt this? Have you ever tried to explain why you need space and people just didn't get it? You're not alone. But there's something deeper. The more you pull away from the noise, the more you start to see how much of life is just distraction. People filling their days with things that don't mean much. People staying busy so they don't have to think. People chasing the next thing, the next event, the next conversation, just to avoid sitting still. And when you were moving at that same speed, you didn't notice it. But now that you've slowed down, you see it everywhere. You see people talking just to fill silence. You see people posting things online just to be seen. You see people rushing through life like there's some finish line they're trying to reach. And you realize you used to do that too. You used to think that staying busy meant you were living well. You used to think that having plans meant you were happy. You used to think that being around people all the time meant you weren't lonely. But now you know better. Now you know that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. Now you know that silence is better than empty conversation. Now you know that rest is not the same as giving up. And once you know that, you can't unknow it. So you stop filling your calendar just to feel productive. You stop saying yes to things you don't want to do. You stop forcing yourself to be social when you'd rather be home. And people start to notice, again. They start to say things like, "You never come out anymore," or "You've become so distant," or "You used to be so much fun." And maybe they're right. Maybe you have changed. But the version of you they miss, that version was tired. That version was pretending. That version was running on empty and didn't even know it. This version of you, this version is learning to rest. This version is learning to say no. This version is learning to protect what matters. And that's not something to apologize for. Does this make sense? Have you ever felt guilty for choosing peace over busyness? You shouldn't. But it doesn't stop there. When you start choosing yourself, the world doesn't always like it. Because the world is used to you showing up. The world is used to you saying yes. The world is used to you being available whenever someone needs you. And when you're not, people feel abandoned. Even if you're just taking care of yourself, even if you're just setting boundaries, even if you're just being honest about what you can handle, they take it as rejection. And the truth is, a lot of people are only comfortable with you when you're giving, when you're helping, when you're there for them. But the moment you need space, the moment you pull back, the moment you stop being what they need, they disappear. Or worse, they make you feel guilty. They remind you of all the times you used to show up. They remind you of how you used to be. They make you feel like you owe them something. And maybe, for a while, you believe them. You start to wonder if you're being selfish. You start to wonder if you're pushing people away for no reason. You start to wonder if you're the problem. But you're not. The problem is that people get used to a version of you that serves them. And when that version changes, they don't know what to do with you anymore. And instead of adjusting, they pull away, or they try to pull you back. And that's when you have to decide. Do I go back to who I was to keep the peace? Or do I keep moving forward, even if it means losing people? Most people who are spiritually awake choose the second option, not because they want to lose people, but because going backward feels impossible now. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel what you felt. You can't go back to living small after you've tasted what it's like to live true. Have you ever felt this pull? Like you had to choose between being yourself and keeping people around? It's one of the hardest choices you'll ever make. And it gets clearer once you see the next part. Here's what most people don't realize. Pulling away from society doesn't mean you hate people. It just means you've outgrown certain ways of being around them. You've outgrown surface-level conversation. You've outgrown fake smiles and forced laughter. You've outgrown pretending to care about things you don't care about just to keep the peace. And once you outgrow those things, most social situations start to feel exhausting. Because everywhere you go, people are playing a game. They're performing. They're saying what they think they should say. They're acting how they think they should act. And you used to do that too. You used to know the rules. You used to know how to play along. But now, you don't want to play anymore. And that makes you the odd one out. People sense it. They can tell you're not fully there. They can tell you're holding back. They can tell something's different. And because they can't figure out what it is, they start to avoid you, or they start to treat you differently. They stop inviting you places. They stop sharing things with you. They stop including you in conversations. Not because they're mean, but because you make them feel uncomfortable. Your presence reminds them of something they're not ready to look at. And so, slowly, you become invisible. Not because you left, but because they stopped seeing you. And here's the hardest part. You start to realize that a lot of your friendships were never really deep. They were just based on shared routines, shared places, shared habits. And when those things change, the friendship fades. It's not anyone's fault. It's just what happens when people grow in different directions. But it still hurts. Because even though you know you're doing what's right for you, it's hard to watch people move on without you. It's hard to see groups stay together while you're on the outside. It's hard to be the one who chose differently. Have you felt this? Have you ever lost people simply because you stopped being who you used to be? It's painful, but it's also part of the process. But here's the part most people overlook. The loneliness you feel when you pull away, it's not just because you miss people, it's because you're grieving. You're grieving the version of yourself that fit in. You're grieving the friendships that didn't survive your growth. You're grieving the life you thought you'd live. And no one talks about that. Everyone talks about letting go and moving forward like it's easy. Like you just wake up one day and decide to be different and everything falls into place. But it doesn't work like that. There are days when you feel strong. Days when you know you made the right choice. Days when you feel proud of yourself for choosing truth over comfort. And then there are days when you feel completely alone. Days when you wonder if you made a mistake. Days when you wish you could just go back and be normal again. But you can't. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Once you taste freedom, you can't go back to pretending. And so you keep going, even when it's hard, even when you feel misunderstood, even when you feel like no one gets you anymore. You keep going because staying in a life that doesn't fit would hurt more than the loneliness. And slowly, over time, the loneliness starts to change. It stops feeling like something's missing, and it starts to feel like space, like room to breathe, like peace. You stop wishing people understood you. You stop waiting for permission to be yourself. You stop needing the world to validate your choices. And you start to realize You're not alone because no one wants you. You're alone because you're learning to stand on your own. And that's a different kind of loneliness. It's not empty, it's full. It's full of quiet, full of clarity, full of you. Does this make sense? Have you ever felt lonely but also more yourself than you've ever been? That's the strange gift of pulling away. And it gets even clearer when you see what happens next. But it doesn't stop there. As you spend more time alone, something interesting happens. You start to hear yourself again. Not the voice that tells you what you should do, not the voice that worries about what people think, not the voice that's trying to keep everyone happy. The real voice, the one that knows what's true. And that voice starts to get louder. It tells you what you actually want, what you actually need, what you actually believe. And the more you listen to it, the more you realize how long you've been ignoring it. For years, maybe decades, you've been listening to everyone else. Your parents, your friends, your spouse, your boss, society. Everyone had an opinion about how you should live. And you listened. You tried to follow the rules. You tried to do what was expected. But now, you're done with that. Now you're listening to yourself. And what you're hearing is different from what everyone else told you. You're hearing that it's okay to want less. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to say no. It's okay to walk away from things that don't serve you anymore. And the more you listen to that voice, the more you trust it. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you it's okay to live the way you want to live. You just start living. And this is where the real shift happens. Because once you start trusting yourself, you stop needing the world to agree with you. You stop needing people to understand. You stop needing validation. You become your own anchor. And that changes everything. You're no longer pulling away from society because it hurts you. You're choosing distance because it protects your peace. You're choosing solitude because it gives you clarity. And the people who don't understand, you stop trying to convince them. You stop defending yourself. You stop explaining. You just let them think what they think, and you keep moving forward. Have you started to feel this? This quiet confidence that comes from finally trusting yourself? It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. And this is where most people finally find peace. The longer you stay true to yourself, the easier it gets to be alone. Not because you hate people, but because you've learned how to be good company for yourself. You've learned how to sit in silence without needing distraction. You've learned how to enjoy your own thoughts. You've learned how to be okay with quiet. And that's something most people never learn. Most people are terrified of being alone. They fill every moment with noise, with people, with plans, with anything that keeps them from having to face themselves. But you've stopped running. You've stopped filling your life with things just to avoid the emptiness. You've stopped surrounding yourself with people just to avoid feeling lonely. You've learned that being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. And once you learn that, everything changes. You stop feeling guilty for staying home. You stop feeling like you're missing out. You stop feeling like something's wrong with you because you're not like everyone else. You realize this is who you are now, and that's okay. You're someone who needs space, someone who values peace, someone who's done pretending. And the people who matter, they'll understand. They'll give you room. They'll respect your choices. And the people who don't, they'll fade away, and that's okay too. Because you're not here to make everyone comfortable. You're here to live a life that feels true. And if that means spending more time alone, so be it. If that means losing people who can't accept the real you, so be it. If that means being misunderstood, so be it. You've stopped trying to control how people see you. You've stopped trying to make yourself smaller so others feel bigger. You're just being yourself, fully, honestly, unapologetically.
And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough. Have you reached this point where being yourself matters more than being liked? It's not easy to get here, but once you do, you realize this is what freedom feels like. And now there's just one more thing you need to understand.
So here's the truth about why spiritually awake people pull away from society. It's not because they think they're better than anyone. It's not because they're trying to be difficult. It's not because they've given up on the world. It's because they've finally learned how to be honest. Honest about what they want, honest about what they need, honest about what they can and can't handle. And the world doesn't always have space for that kind of honesty. The world wants you to keep up, to keep smiling, to keep pretending, to keep moving at the same speed as everyone else. But you can't do that anymore. You've seen too much, you've felt too much, you've lived too much. And now you're choosing a different way, a quieter way, a slower way, a more honest way. And yes, that means you'll lose people. Yes, that means you'll feel misunderstood. Yes, that means you'll spend more time alone. But it also means you'll finally be at peace. You'll finally stop pretending. You'll finally stop performing. You'll finally stop living for other people. And you'll start living for yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in a true way, in a way that honors who you really are. And that's not something to feel bad about. That's something to be proud of. Because most people never get here. Most people spend their whole lives trying to fit in, trying to be liked, trying to meet expectations. But you chose differently. You chose truth. You chose peace. You chose yourself. And even if the world doesn't understand, even if people walk away, even if you feel alone sometimes, you know deep down that you made the right choice. Because the life you're living now, it's yours, and that's all that matters. If this message helped you, subscribe so you don't miss the next reflection. Leave a like and share this with someone who needs to hear this today. You're not alone in this, and you're not wrong for choosing the path you're on. Keep going. You're exactly where you need to be.